Hi, I'm Danielle the Clay Lady in my studio on the Clay Ladies campus in Nashville, Tennessee. Today I want to teach you how to repair Clay Lady projects. To repair Clay Lady projects, it depends on what stage the project is in. If you have been teaching your students the Clay Lady way, where the kids get to make and paint in one sitting, let that project become bone dry, and then dip it in a clear glaze for a single firing, this is how you repair the projects. So let's say you just got finished teaching your kids, you walk out for the room a minute, and you come back in, and their project is the ear has fallen off the bunny. Now at this point the clay is still wet. They've decorated with clay paints. Now clay paints are just watery clay with colors in them, and what you use to make two pieces of clay stick together is also watery clay. I call it clay glue. So what you can do is just take the clay paint that they were using. You can take the clay paint they were using, dab, stick it right on there, and then that will be ready to dry, to bone dry, before you dip it in a clear glaze. Now let's say that you've been gone for a couple days and you come back and you find a project with just a piece broken off. It's not bone dry, it's not wet, it's leather hard. At this stage, just taking a toothbrush with water to scratch at this and put it back on will not work. The clay is too dry, so the water soaks in and it doesn't create a bond. But what does create a bond is a little bit of vinegar. So if you take a little bit of vinegar and you put that on with a toothbrush, what happens is the vinegar will wet the clay, but vinegar does not evaporate. So I can scratch it with the toothbrush with the vinegar, add on that nose, give it a little bit of a hug, and it will stick on there. And that way you can let it become bone dry the rest of the drying and then dip it in a clear glaze. So you've been out of the classroom for a week and the projects are bone dry. This mask, the nose is completely off. I can dip this in the glaze, I can dip this in the glaze, and then in the kiln I can set them together. And because it is a horizontal piece, the nose will glaze and stick right to the mask. However, if the ear had broken off and I tried to put these together in the kiln, that ear would fall. So what I would need to do is glaze this, fire them separately, and then glue them together. So let's talk about if the piece has already been fired and you have two separate pieces, either because like the monkey mask, the ear had fallen off, or let's say that as you loaded out of the kiln, a piece got chipped off. So regular Elmer's glue is not going to work, and super glue is not going to work. And a glue gun, although it will work once it dries, the glue's very rubbery, so the pieces move. So what we use in the studio is E6000. E6000 is great. The only thing is it dries kind of slow and you don't want to be sitting there holding it the whole time. So this is what we do. We use a little bit of both. We get the piece and you can take the E6000 and we can just do a drop or two on the piece. It doesn't take much. And then I can use the glue gun and put just a drop of glue gun, put this piece on, and what will happen is the hot glue will hold quickly, but the E6000, once it dries in about 24 hours, will hold it forever. Now let's say that it's a precarious piece and it's not really getting a good grab. The other trick that we do is we get our tape, and you can tape that piece on and secure it until it dries. The next day we can pull that off and you'll be able to pull this off and this will be secured forever. Repairing the clay pieces I think is really important. Catching it at each different stage makes it easy for you. But let's say that you pulled the piece out and it fell on the floor and it was beyond repair. I have a strong belief that you need to find that child that the project belonged to and create another one. I had the experience where I had taught a child an hour away. One project was broken, but it was a Mother's Day project. I drove that hour, pulled that child out of class, we made that project, drove back to my studio, fired it, drove it back to that child in time for Mother's Day. Now you would think that was just an act of kindness that may come back to you and may not, but I did. I ran into that young lady probably 12 years later, and not only did she remember that act of kindness, but she also still had the project out on her mother's china cabinet. And so that's a forever memory that I helped create for that young lady. And I really think that that's important for a teacher to create that for your students. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. You can contact me off my website, theclaylady.com, or if you're in Nashville, be sure and come by and see me on the Clay Ladies campus.